Domestic terror, obviously a real threat. I personally believe that surveillance is needed. Now let's bring in Dan Henninger from the Wall Street Journal, who says it is the lawyers, not the generals, who are deciding military strategy. That's the nature of your column today, Thursday Wall Street Journal.
That's right.
The lawyers are making military strategy? Explain that.
Well, let's try a pop quiz for our viewers. Could they possibly guess how many lawyers are employed by the Department of Defense? The number is 10,000. 10,000 is the number of soldiers in a division. We have a division of lawyers in the Department of Defense.
That's astonishing.
Well, you have that many lawyers because there is so much law for them to apply to what the military does. This is a process that began back after the Vietnam War, when many people, Democrats, media, decided they could not trust the president or even the military with the war-making powers. And so over the years, there has been endless litigation, starting with the War Powers Resolution. But that was not the end of it. Surveillance, the National Security Agency, that was one. So you take these things alone and you say, this is an interesting issue, let's have a debate about it. But at the end of the debate, they pass more legislation, they enact more federal rules to govern the way we do these things. That was true of the use of drones and the targeting of people for the use of drones. Yep. That's for the rules of engagement, soldiers on the ground, as we say. There are all sorts of legal restrictions on what they may do or not do, such as, for instance, the interrogation of prisoners. We went through that one as well. All of this is added up, in my mind, to this incredibly panoply of laws and rules that has entangled the military. And make no mistake, before they go into battle, they check with the lawyers to see what they can and cannot do. We're fighting with one hand tied behind our back.
Is this why there is so much passing of words, whether the president says we're at war or not at war, whether it's boots on the ground or not boots on the ground? Is it lawyers behind all this passing?
Those words can trigger certain obligations on the part of, say, the president. I'll give you a perfect example. After 2001, after 9/11, the Congress passed something called the Authorization for the Use of Military Force, the AUMF. This is what President Obama cited as the authority for the air attacks against ISIS that they started about a month ago. Now, lawyers have raised the question of whether ISIS qualifies as al-Qaeda as defined in the original AUMF, because ISIS decided that they would officially break from al-Qaeda. So perhaps they are not covered by the original AUMF. If you can follow that legal reasoning, Stuart, you're a better man than I. But the argument is that now he has to seek a second authorization because the first one did not cover our current enemy.
You cannot change the nature of American society, which has evolved to be more and more legalistic.
Yes.
Lawyers run everything. You can't really change that, can you?
Well,
let me extrapolate further. You cannot fight a war and let the generals fight it. You can't do that in this day and age, can you?
On the one hand, you cannot. It's hard to turn all this back, but it would help if you had a leader, say the president, the commander-in-chief, Article 2 of the Constitution, who would say that he simply was not going to let the lawyers intervene in a serious battle like the one we have undertaken against ISIS and the terrorists you have just been describing.
Well, that would throw down a challenge, wouldn't it? Sue me or impeach me if you think I'm breaking the law.
Well, instead, Stuart, President Obama is going in the opposite direction. I mean, the White House made it clear yesterday that he is going to personally pick targets for any kind of airstrikes in Syria. The Wall Street Journal has reported this. So like LBJ in the Vietnam War, he's going to sit there at his desk in the Oval Office deciding who we can hit and who we can't hit. He is the one who said that the drone attacks can only be carried out against targets if there is a near certainty that no civilians will be harmed. But all the people I've talked to in the military say, look, in battle, you can never achieve the standard of near certainty in virtually anything you do. Right. But now Barack Obama himself is going to decide who we can hit and who we cannot hit.
With a lawyer looking over his shoulder.
Yeah. It's a bizarre way to fight a war, if we can call it that.
Yeah, and we can't.
Right? No, or the lawyers will come in.
It's just not fun. You know, I've lived in America for 40 years, and that's one of the things which has always struck me as a negative. We have the rule not of law, but the rule of lawyers, and there's a fundamental difference.
There is a fundamental difference. We are not saying that we should not have laws or rules in military engagements, but most people think that once you say that, common sense prevails, and we decide what you can do and what you cannot do, and that's easy. It is not that easy. Beneath those two categories, there is a huge detail of verbiage and qualifications and nuances that these soldiers and generals have to be aware of. I mean, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Martin Dempsey, has enough lawyers working for him personally to fill a law firm.
That's extraordinary. 10,000 lawyers in the Department of Defense.
A division.
Yeah, that's it. That is a division.
Shakespeare would be spinning in his grave. First we kill all the lawyers.
I believe. All right, Dan, good stuff as usual. Thanks so much indeed, sir.